Hello again, friends, and thank you for joining me for another whiskey tasting. We are back on the craft beat today, and I'll show you right now what we're going to be reviewing. This is A.D. Law's 4-grain straight bourbon whiskey. Now, this jumped off the shelf at me because I saw that beautiful Arts and Crafts bottle, and that's a style I really like. But then my spider senses started tingling because whenever I see a bottle or a label that's a little too pretty, I think, okay, well, is this somebody trying to hide the fact that they were sourcing whiskey from somewhere and this is the same stuff that everybody else has, but they're just trying to gussy it up and move it via this fancy bottle or label? And in fact, that's not the case. So A.D. Law's is a proper craft distillery. They filled their first barrel in July of 2011. They source their grains from farms in Colorado to the extent possible. And they do their own distillation. They have a 4-day sour mash fermentation, so reasonably long fermentation. They mature in 53-gallon barrels, full-size barrels. So on paper, at least, everything seems like it's on the up and up. But the interesting thing is going to be, what do we get out of that? So we're going to go ahead and have a look at this. You can see. So it's a light, like kind of orangey, golden orangey color. I don't know if you can see there, but it is on the lighter side. Oh, I should say, so this is, the mash bill on this is 60% corn, which does not come from Colorado, but there's 20% heirloom wheat in there, 10% heirloom rye, and 10% heirloom malted barley. So it's a 4-grain bourbon, and they bottle this at 47.5% ABV. It's about $60 a bottle. I was able to get this one, and then you can see on the shelf behind me there's another little bottle of their rye. So this was a tasting set that I found at the store that was $50 for the two. So nice little savings. And by the way, if there are any craft distillers out there watching this, please, please, please bottle in small size bottles and provide us a selection that's really great for those of us who want to explore but don't necessarily want to commit to a full-size bottle, to have that option to taste across your range in a more manageable format. So for what that's worth. But enough about that. So this is really, I'm getting, despite the fact that it's only 60% corn, I'm getting a ton of like really sweet corny aromas. There could be a bit of that sweetness and softness from the wheat as well, but yeah, just like a really, really rich, again, corny, maybe milky, creamy is another way to put that, but yeah, this is just super soft, super sweet, super plump, really just charming and winning straight out of the gate on the nose. A little bit of spice from that rye, a little bit of kind of green vegetable aromas. It's important sometimes with the craft whiskeys to note what you're not getting in addition to what you're getting. What I'm not getting on this is a lot of that like really earthy, muddy, stale, nasty, kind of overly woody. I've likened it in a couple of reviews to puddle water, that just kind of dirty, dilute smell and flavor that you get. And that's typically, I found a couple sources of that is cuts that are too deep into the tails, and then short maturations in small size barrels. That's really the recipe for getting all that nastiness. But there's none of that. Like I said, it's very, very much towards the high end of the register, very sweet, very light, very, yeah, just incredibly grain driven too, which is something, again, I love in craft whiskey. And I've said this many times, like, if you're going to be a craft whiskey maker, you got to be doing something other than a second-rate Jim Beam impression at twice the cost per bottle. Like, you really need to be able to say, this is a flavor that I'm delivering to you that is not going to be replicable in anything that you're going to get from any of the big distilleries. Because if you're trying to compete head-to-head on the sheer basis of quality and price, you're not going to be able to do it. Those guys know how to make whiskey, and they know how to make whiskey well. So I love that. I love that we're getting all the grain on this. Again, it's a 4-grain bourbon, so hearing all those sing out, a little bit of that malted barley. Yeah. Okay. So very first impression, and this is my true first impression. I've not had any of this yet, but it is favorable. I like what I smell here, and I'm excited to try to taste this. So I'm gonna just give this a little kiss. There's even, sometimes having a little bit of it in the mouth will unlock like some of the nasal stuff, and there's even like a at the very end, like a very faint anise or like a licorice note, but it's a little spicy accent to what is otherwise, like I've said this enough times already, but a really sweet and really corny kind of nose here. But you are getting a little bit of that. My grandma used to make these cookies called pit cells, and she would put anise in them, and it was a great Great smell. It used to fill the kitchen around Christmas time, so I'm getting that. Very first sip. Okay. All right. So I'll be completely honest with you guys. This isn't hugely expressive on the palate straight away. It's kind of moving through the mouth quickly and silently, and see if I can coax any flavors out of here to describe for you guys. So yeah, there's an echo of that, all those aromatics on the front of the mouth, in front of the tongue, but like in much more concentrated form. Yeah, but then this is very like lean. It's weird because the nose is so plump, and I was sure like this was just gonna be mouth filling and mouth coating with all that juiciness, that sweet, creamy juiciness. But you know, on the palate for comparison is just super restrained. I mean, it's definitely got texture. Like I can feel it as it moves over the tongue. It starts with a little heat, and then it becomes kind of a little bit grainy. And I don't mean grainy in the sense of having grain, but I mean grainy in the sense of like in the way that tannins are grainy. Like if you think about that drying flavor that you get from like red wine or black tea or something, like it's got a little bit of that texture towards the top of the tongue. And then yeah, there's again, it's there, but it's very hard to pick out individual flavors. And I don't quite know what to make of this. There's some vague nuttiness in there, like maybe, I don't know, cashews or peanuts, like a salted nut of some type. But I'm struggling, guys, and this is usually, you know, I like to think that I'm able to grab at least one or two flavors of note, even on the most restrained whiskeys. But this is, you know what I think this is maybe a problem related to, like, sometimes when you first open the bottle, and I had pulled the cork on this for a while, but this is the first pour I've taken out of it, like sometimes there's just this like this muteness or this like bottle shock. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but you get that sometimes when you have whiskey that you've just pulled the cork on, and oftentimes you need to leave it for a couple days or a week or a couple weeks before you really get the full effect. I'll tell you what I'm going to do with this one. Check this out. Make sure the cork is in there, but I'm just going to like give it a shake. I like to, you know, you can see the bubbles kind of aerates it somewhat now that I've got a little more air in the bottle, and maybe that'll kind of wake it up a little bit for future tastings. But I'm afraid as an initial, like a maiden voyage, is kind of a dud for you guys because I can't really tell you too much about it. There's no off notes, and that's something that I'm always on the lookout for with craft whiskey is, do you have something in there that shouldn't be there? And that's usually, like I said, because somebody has either because of incompetence or economics or whatever reason or motivation they have cut a corner somewhere, and that really comes through in the whiskey. And that's not the case here. I mean, this is competently made. It tastes fine, but again, just a mismatch between the nose and what you get on the palate, and where there's so much of that distinctive aroma from the grains. I'm just not feeling that carry through in terms of flavor. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear your guys' thoughts, because I really I like doing the first impression tasting, because you're not getting something that I've rehearsed or some notes that I've already decided are in there. I'm giving them to you in real time, but the risk is like this, where I just don't have that much to say because it's not giving me that much to work with. So let me know whether you'd prefer me to have better formed opinions and kind of just act out my first taste, you know, with some degree of verisimilitude, or would you like to continue this way and just roll the dice and see where it comes up? Get more like a lot more citrus notes on the nose. The nose continues to evolve. I mean, I'm getting a lot more here relative to what I first had, and there's like a delightful array here, but hopefully over time more of that'll come through on the palate. I mean, like I said, you know, these guys seem to be doing everything I write, and you know, best practices, and I want to like this. I'd love it if that translated to some great flavors, but you know, I'm going to reserve judgment. You guys will read my full write-up on malt-review.com, but in the meantime, you know, it's always fun to do this and just talk through these with you, and I love the interaction I've been getting. So thank you guys for your attention and your time, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.